I've spent the past month in Washington, D.C., and it is terrific to be back in America. Now, I'm going to do my very, very best to try to speak for less than 21 hours. But you will know that I'm near wrapping up when I bring out and start reading The Cat in the Hat. You know, y'all just had a chance a minute ago to see Heidi and the girls. They've headed back home because it's now bedtime, and so they're going to sleep. But I will tell you a true story from last weekend. Last weekend, Heidi and the girls flew up to D.C. to be with Daddy. And on Sunday afternoon, we drove out to Mount Vernon to spend a little bit of time with them. And as we're driving, Caroline is 5, Catherine's 2. As we're driving, Caroline turns to Catherine and she says, "Catherine, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And Catherine said, "I want to work in the U.S. Senate. I want to work with Daddy." And Caroline turns to her and says, "Oh, Catherine, that's boring. We're going to be in a rock band." And then Caroline added the kicker. She said, besides, by then, Daddy will be dead anyway. You know, Michael, I kind of wondered if Caroline had been talking with Republican leadership in Washington. If she knew something I didn't know. I know you do. And let me tell you, that's what gives me strength each and every day in Washington. You know, some folks, some of our friends in the media, they say, well, gosh, there are a few people in Washington saying some mean things. Who cares? Because at the end of the day, I don't work for the party bosses in Washington. I work for each and every one of you. And let me tell you, at every stage, the encouragement, the prayers, the words of support from the men and women here throughout Houston, throughout Texas, have meant so much, lifting me up and building a hedge of protection. And let me just say, thank you. They began by saying, well, gosh, there are a lot of people in Washington unhappy that this Cruz fella is doing all this stuff. What do the people in Texas think? And the New York Times wrote this article where they said, holy cow, people in Texas actually like what this guy's doing. And they ran a picture from down in El Campo, Texas, from an individual, Bruce Labai, who took his entire fence and stuck 1,200 styrofoam cups in it that says, we need more Republicans like Ted Cruz. Now, Bruce is here with his wife, Evelyn. You want to stand and wave? And Bruce, we've gotten you a few extra cups in case the wind blows them out. Perfect. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. I want to thank each of you guys for what we're doing. You're here because you love your kids. Yep. And your grandkids. And you're here because you're not willing to let this country keep going down the road we're going. Now, I want to talk to you very, very briefly about what we've accomplished in the last 2 months and where we go from here. In the last 2 months, we saw something extraordinary happen. We saw millions of Americans all across this country rise up and say, we want to take our country back. Nearly 2.1 million Americans went to the national website, don'tfundit.com, signed a national petition to say, stop Obamacare. And y'all melted down the phone lines on Capitol Hill. Scared the living daylights out of Washington. And you know what? Liberty is never safer than when politicians are terrified. All of official Washington scoffed at the idea that the grassroots could rise up. And that's exactly what y'all did. And then we saw the House of Representatives stand up and lead. We saw House Republicans demonstrate a profile in courage as they listened to the American people. All of official Washington scoffed at the idea that the House would act, and yet the House acted, stood strong, and said, let's fund government, but don't fund Obamacare. And beyond that, collectively, we have elevated in the national debate the disaster, the train wreck, the nightmare that is Obamacare. You know, a couple of weeks ago, the opening skit of the season premiere of Saturday Night Live was a 3-minute skit on what a disaster Obamacare is. For those of y'all who haven't seen it, when Kathleen Sebelius, the Secretary of HHS, went on Jon Stewart's show, he ripped her apart. That's what happens when the grassroots get engaged. You know, have y'all noticed, you know, the Nigerian email scammers? They've been a lot less active lately because they've all been hired to run the Obamacare websites. And throughout the course of this debate, throughout the last 2 months, have you noticed that Democrats aren't defending Obamacare? They can't defend Obamacare. To all the young people coming out of school who can't find a job, thank you. But where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? We follow the model we have seen play out over and over and over again. Let me point out, this year, fight after fight in the Senate. Early on, first couple of months, I was proud to stand side by side with Rand Paul and his filibuster on drones. Official Washington said he had no chance. And then the American people rose up in incredible numbers, and 24 hours later, the president was forced to admit in writing what he'd refused to admit for 3 weeks, which is that the Constitution limits his power to target U.S. citizens with drones. On guns, after the horrible shooting in Newtown, President Obama came out not with targeting violent criminals as he should have, but with instead trying to go after the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens. Again, official Washington said it was unstoppable. And then the American people spoke out in overwhelming numbers and said, protect our constitutional right to keep and bear arms. And when the vote came on the floor of the Senate, every single proposal of the president's that would have undermined the Second Amendment was voted down on the floor of the Senate. On immigration, the president pushed a bill that would grant amnesty and would not secure the borders. He pushed it through the Senate, it went to the House of Representatives, and the American people spoke out overwhelmingly and said, we don't want a solution that leaves our border not being secure, that makes the problem worse. And the House of Representatives has responded by listening to the people and saying, we're not going to pass a bill that grants amnesty and fails to secure the borders. People are frustrated because Washington isn't listening. What we've got to do is we've got to tell your stories. We've got to help give you a voice in Washington. Thank you. So I encourage every one of you to go and upload your stories, upload your videos on makedclisten.org, and get your friends, your family, your colleagues to do the same. We're going to tell the stories because the truth is unavoidable. And the second thing we're going to do is continue. You know, when Marco Rubio reached for a thing of water, they gave him endless grief. It used to be in Washington, D.C., when they said you had a drinking problem, it meant something different than this.
But you're among friends in here in the Tea Party.
But the second thing we got to do is we have to continue to energize and to mobilize the grassroots.
Right.
The answers to this country are not going to come from Washington. They are going to come from the men and women all across America. And I want to close by just pointing out what Ronald Reagan reminded us. That freedom is not passed down in the bloodstream from one generation to the next. That every generation has to stand up and defend freedom. And the reason we are here tonight is so that one day we don't have to answer to our children and our children's children the question, what was it like when America was free? Thank you, and God bless you.